In 2019, Helen Hewlett, aged 41 at the time, joined her new job as a factory operator at a company that manufactures frozen vegetarian foods in the town of Fakenham, located in the state of Norfolk in England. At that company, she met a 47-year-old man named Paul Benton. Paul already worked at the company for several years. He was in the human resources area, being responsible for training new employees. Helen and Paul quickly became friends and began spending the free time they had at work at each other's company. Gradually, their conversations became more and more intimate, reaching a point where they both started flirting and having hotter conversations, if you know what I mean. When they weren't talking in person, the two used to communicate a lot, trading text messages on WhatsApp. There was only one problem. Both Paul and Helen were married. Helen was the mother of 5 children and Paul was the father of 3, and according to sources, their marriages were stable and healthy. In January 2020, Helen arrived early at work and Paul met her in the company's parking lot during one of his breaks. While the two were in the car, things would have heated up and Paul would have kissed Helen, who ended up reciprocating. In the afternoon of the same day, the two would have gone again to the company's parking lot, where they ended up not only making out, but also touching each other. However, soon after, Paul regretted it and told Helen that he loved his family and that a betrayal went against his character. The woman initially seemed to have understood Paul and accepted his decision in a good way. But deep down, Helen would have been excited about having an affair and would have looked for Paul in the following days, but he started to ignore her completely. Paul started to run away from Helen, doing everything not to have to come face to face with her, and Helen ended up getting angry about it because she felt used and discarded. Helen sent several messages to Paul until he blocked her. She also sent several emails, but he deleted them all. In the days that followed, Helen didn't give up. Quite the contrary, she was determined to get Paul's attention. She tried several times to send intimate photos to him and was looking for him through the company, with the intention of them having some kind of relationship. In her mind, everything they talked about during the previous months showed that Paul was interested in her, and she believed that the man was also in love, but that he was only in internal conflict because of his family and that she needed to prove it to him that she was the right person. At that point, Helen was already obsessed with Paul and began to pursue him in every possible way, in an attempt to make him come back to her, since, in her mind, Paul wanted and loved her. He was just confused and afraid. As the months went by and Paul avoided all of Helen's advances, she changed from a passive, loving approach to a more aggressive one. She sent several offensive and threatening emails, saying that she would go to his house and tell his wife everything that had happened. She even posted stories on her social media saying, "I had to shoot Paul Benton in the balls." Co-workers of the two saw this post and even warned Paul about it, thinking it was just a joke. Things were so out of control that Helen went so far as to grab and kiss Paul by force and grope his private parts, all inside the company office. On that occasion, the woman freaked out and broke a coffee cup on the wall, as Paul again didn't respond to her onslaught. From then on, Paul was so scared of Helen's attitude that he decided to ask for a transfer to another company unit to get away from her. In mid-June 2021, Paul Benton was transferred to another unit called Kinnerton, located in the same city. Paul was very relieved, as he thought that finally his problem with Helen was over. But unfortunately for him, Helen was more determined and obsessed than he realized. Believe it or not, the woman resigned from the unit where she was working and got a job in less than a month in the same unit where Paul was transferred. With that, Helen continued to torment the man, but now instead of wanting to romance him, she wanted something else: revenge. Helen began to make up stories about Paul for the head of the unit, In one of them, she told her boss that Paul harassed her and had also harassed other women in the company. And it didn't stop there. She even said that Paul intimidated the other employees and also made several prejudiced comments about them. As soon as he heard it, the head of the unit decided to call Paul in for a conversation. In this conversation, Paul explained to the head of the unit about everything that had happened between him and Helen and that the woman was chasing him and trying to destroy his life. Because Paul's record as an employee as well as a citizen was virtually impeccable, the unit chief believed him and advised him to go to the police department to file a defamation complaint. Paul took the advice and went to the police department to file the complaint. However, in his police report, he omitted the fact that he and Helen had had an extramarital affair. As much as Helen did everything in her power to harm Paul, she was unsuccessful, and when she realized that she wasn't going to get anywhere like that, she decided to take it to another level and started looking for someone who could put an end to the responsible for her suffering, Paul. The woman registered on a dark web page under the username Horses5. In this account, she would have added the value of more than £30,000, £12,000 from an overdraft, and over £20,000 from family savings. Of that total amount, she transferred £20,547 to an intermediary Coinbase escrow account that turned those amounts into bitcoins linked to the dark web page where mercenaries could be found. On that site, she made an announcement in which she offered this amount to anyone willing to put an end to Paul's life. This ad contained Paul Belton's picture, including his full name, home address, work address, and a description saying that he needed to be disposed of, but that it should all look like an accident. She even got to talk to a sniper who would have passed the value of £20,000 to £60,000 for the service. She also talked to an arsonist who said he could set Paul's house on fire for £20,000. Simpler services were also offered to her. Someone offered her to beat him up for £2,000. One of these criminals would have suggested a more organized method of attack, using an undetectable poison or even a snake that would be placed in a hidden environment to attack him. The criminal assured that the work would be completed, but didn't inform the values of the service. Apparently, Helen Hewlett got to work with one of them, because in August 2022, the British police received an anonymous tip about her having hired someone on the dark web to eliminate Paul Belton. The police were unable to trace this anonymous call, but they began investigations to verify the veracity of this information, and in a short time, they were able to verify the facts. In late August 2022, Helen Hewlett was arrested and charged with conspiracy against Paul Belton. Initially, the whole story was being kept under wraps by Paul and Helen, but somehow it ended up leaking to the media, and everyone in the family of both involved got wind of it. Later, during an interview, Paul Belton admitted that his daughter had already figured everything out. According to him, the girl found out when she was looking at his cell phone records and saw that he had gone to the police department. The girl then asked why he would have gone to the police, and he decided to tell her everything that was happening. According to some sources, as soon as Paul's wife found out about everything, she filed for divorce. I couldn't find information if Helen's husband did the same, or if he's still married to her. On January 25, 2023, Helen Hewlett's trial at Norwich Crown Court began, with a jury comprising 7 men and 5 women. During the trial, the prosecution presented several pieces of evidence that proved that Helen had pursued Paul for more than 2 years, from January 2020 until August 2022. And when she didn't get what she wanted, which was to have a relationship with Paul, she decided to hire someone to eliminate him. Helen defended herself against the accusations, claiming that Paul deceived her, that they spent months talking about a possible relationship and flirted daily with each other. She also claimed that after Paul got what he wanted with her, that January 2020 afternoon in the car, he simply stopped talking to her, ignoring her, and that he would have not even talked to her to apologize or put an end to what they had started. She said that she felt used and manipulated, and that her feelings for him had come true as he always hinted that she had a future with him. Defense lawyers argued that Helen did nothing and claimed that the website that she would have hired a mercenary was a fake, and that the amounts were traced to an account in Romania. They also stated that she never sent a message giving an okay for the crime to be committed. However, these arguments were not substantiated, since the prosecution stated that Helen had no way of knowing if the site was real or not, and that at the time she was arrested, they even tried to cancel the service with the mercenary, but they couldn't, as the amount of more than £20,000 in bitcoins had already been paid. Because of that, they didn't really know if the hired mercenary would go after Paul or not, and were forced to put a security system in the house, along with a panic button in case something happened. In her court testimony, Helen claimed that no matter what she had done, she would not have the guts to do anything against Paul or his family, as she had already thought about it and the consequences and realized that it was not worth it. She even pointed out that in fact, she simply wanted revenge for everything he had done to her. Paul didn't attend the court in person. He gave his testimony via video conference and told about the impact that all this had on his family, causing their separation. He also stated that he is afraid at all times, as he does not know if there is a mercenary looking for him yet. Helen Hewlett's trial lasted 11 days in total. The jury was split and were undecided on whether she really was being vindictive after being slighted, or if she was just needy and trying to get justice after being lied to. In the end, Helen Hewlett was found guilty of soliciting a felony. However, at the time of recording this video, her sentence had not yet been handed down, but according to some sources, she could face life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. Alright folks, that's it for today. Thanks for watching until the end, best wishes, and I see you next time.